Hello everyone. Today we're going to learn about what is a business. So let's first clear up one thing about businesses, and that is that businesses are a system. They work in a certain motion, a circular motion, a cycle, in other words, and it continues in that way. And then, as per the owner of the business, you can make new changes, but it always follows a certain order. And today we're going to learn about the four aspects of that order. These four aspects are extremely important, and of course, they're the key basics of a business. So it's a key that you understand this, and of course, everything that we learn in the future will be in some way connected to this. Let's get started. The first aspect of a business would be the inputs. The inputs. So, what exactly are the inputs of a business? An input is everything that a business gets or buys, everything that goes into a business for the business to then process and do everything else. So, what exactly would an input be? Something like financial input. Financial. Financial input would be something like money. Money that goes into the business with which they can buy products and process that product or goods into something that the business can sell, which can be a goods or service. Then there's another kind of input, which is human input, human resource. A human resource would mean workers, employees, people who work for the business, for the company, and they help the company to grow. In most cases, in entrepreneurial cases, when there's one person who carries a business, the only human resource there is really is the owner of the business. And in bigger businesses, it can be something like employees or workers in general. And finally, the third kind of input is the physical input. Physical input is literal products, goods, things that a business takes in, converts into something that they promise to sell to their customers, do so, and then they make those trades. These are the three kinds of inputs that a business can have. After a business has gotten these few things from their own sources, wherever it may be, they move on to the processes. The processes. What are processes in a business? So, there are four main kinds of processes that a business can have. First of them being the human resources, or HR, as you may have heard. Human resources, or HR. This makes sure that for the business to function or to run, the correct and properly skilled employees have been employed for the business to work. This is very important because if there's not the right kind of people for a business, it's not going to work out. Of course, a company that bakes cakes wouldn't really do well if there were an engineer working, right? Yeah, that's an example. The second aspect of a process of a business is the finance and accounts. Finance and accounts. This makes sure that the business has the amount of money that it needs to operate, to start, all of those kind of things. When a prime example could be that when a company is trying to form an alliance with another country or trying to make big purchases to improve itself, then finance and accounts comes in really handy because they make sure this aspect of a business, the process, makes sure that the business has enough money to do so. And of course, just the average trade cycle, when a business sells something or when it's time to get some inputs, maybe it physical, financial, or physical, they have enough money to do so. Otherwise, well, it's not going to work. The third process aspect is marketing. Marketing. So marketing the sector makes sure that for within the business, the right kinds of products are being sold at the right price to the right customers. Because if it's the right product at the very wrong price, then of course the sales are not going to go really high because people are going to notice that the product is too expensive. Or of course, if it's a certain product but it's going to the wrong kind of people, well, I mean, of course, that's a completely wrong section that you're going for. So there's not going to be many sales, therefore causing the business to slow down and eventually go out of business. And the fourth, final aspect of of the process section is the operations. Operations. So operations are how the core of a business, the core activities of a business are carried out. Core activities being the production or the health of employees within the company itself. Of course, that part goes a bit into human resources as well, but there's also some part of that goes into operations because that's how the business on the inside is being carried out. Operations, of course, mainly focuses on how the business is operating, of course. Meaning, say for example, you have a bakery. The operations within the bakery, in the process section, would be how you're making the cakes, how you're processing the inputs that you got, such as wheat, sugar, flour, all that kind of stuff. How you're processing that, how you're making that cake. Are you using machinery? Are you making it yourself? Do you have employees doing that for you? All of that stuff goes into the processes section, specifically operations. And now, after all of these processes, of course, are the outputs. What are the outputs of a business? Outputs are things that the businesses can offer or sell to its customers, things that the business has promised to do for its customers. Now, this can be one of two things. It can be either a good or a service. What is a good? So, goods are physical things, things that you can touch. Like, say, for example, this pen here. This pen is a good given to me by the Arteza company, not sponsored. Um, this company makes pens and it sells them, so it gives goods. These are goods. They're physical, tangible things. And of course, compared to the goods, the services would be intangible things, things that you cannot touch, but as still a business can sell. Non physical. Things like, well, it can be a university, school, or even something like Uber, for example. Let's take a school. When you go to a school or you enlist someone like your kid into a school, what you're doing, you're paying the school some money to teach your child. What's happening here is that your child is going to get an education, and you're paying for this education. Now, education, it isn't something that you can really see or touch, you see. It's something that your child is getting, it's getting a proper education. That's a service. It's intangible, but it's still there, and you're paying for it. And there's a company that's offering it. Their profit is based entirely off of the money that you give them because of education. So that's non physical. And of course, the physical example that I gave was pens, but it can be anything, such as the whiteboard or a phone, a MacBook, a car, anything. That's physical goods. And now, finally, after having sold these things from a business, there is the fourth and final component of a business, the feedback. What is a feedback? What is the feedback that a company gets? Feedback can be one of two things. It can be, well, of course, negative feedback and positive feedback. But this feedback can be achieved in multiple ways. Let's see. Okay, positive and negative kinds of feedback. Of course, negative feedbacks can include reviews, and positive feedback. I misspelled reviews. Yes, reviews. How does this work? So when a business sees either success or failure, or a more hands-on example would be a restaurant. When you go to a restaurant and the restaurant you can clearly see doesn't have proper cleanliness or the food doesn't have good taste, then you'd give them a review on, say, Google Maps or anywhere. You'd give them a review of like 2 stars and leave a review saying the food was not good or the place was not clean, something like that. That would come into the negative review section here. With this kind of review, the business can understand that the business is doing something wrong and they can improve on something. On the other hand, positive reviews in feedback can be something like good reviews, a 5-star rating to a restaurant, or literal written reviews from people saying that the food was good and that they would recommend to other people. That would be a good positive review for feedback. However, there are other ways that you can also find out reviews for your own company or business. The negative kind of review would be if your business sees a loss in sales. A loss in sales. How does this work? When a business loses sales, it means clearly that it's doing something wrong, something that is not going the way that it should be. It can be something like the products that a business is selling, well, is going out of date, that the people are not liking it, or, it's just gone out of the needs or the wants of the people. It's gone out of fashion. This can happen often for, say, some specific kind of jeans. When a company makes jeans and those kind of jeans are, in the fashion of the current date and time, it can be, selling really well. But after a while, say like a year or two, those jeans will stop selling as much because the hype is just gone. That can be a negative review in terms of feedback. And in the positive feedback section, it can also be something similar. It can be it can be in the positive feedback section. It will be that there is a up in sales. Your sales go high. This can happen because of many reasons. One, you've done something right, clearly that the customers are liking what you're selling. Or two, the product that you're selling is, clearly and properly directed towards the likes, needs, and wants of a customer, of the customers in general. This is how positive feedback can be incorporated or understood. And with all of this, you can see that a business can work in a cycle. Let me explain how. The inputs. When a business gets something, it can be, as I said, the physical, human, or financial resources. That goes into the inputs. It can then take those inputs, process it, using any of its processing aspects. Going down to the outputs, the processed product will be sold, and then after that product is sold, it will go to the customers, and the customers will give feedback. Let me give a more clear example. Say, for example, you have a chocolate company, a company that makes chocolate. For the input section, your chocolate company would have, say, for example, cocoa imported from Africa, a certain part of Africa. That would be the inputs. That's a product that you're taking into the business to convert into the output, which will be chocolate bars. That we'll get to in a bit. It can be, yes, as I said, cocoa, or even machinery if you're using machinery to make your chocolate. And of course, employees to look after the machines and so on. That all comes in the input section. After you have gotten all of these resources, be it employees, machines, or cocoa from a certain place, sugar, so on and so on, it will then be processed. As we've seen in the operations section, the cocoa, sugar, everything will be processed. The machines will be used. The employees will look after the machines. All of those are processes that happen within a business. After this input has been processed, it will then turn into an output, which is actual chocolate bars. These are products that your business have made, chocolate bars, as you've promised to sell to the customers. You sell these chocolate bars. Then it goes to the feedback section. In the feedback, the customers really like the chocolate bars. That means that you've done something well. Say it can be something like having used the having the proper kind of cocoa imported from the proper kind of place, or using the machinery in a right way with which your chocolate turns out really well. It can be any of it. That's what you're doing right. The challenge is often finding what you're doing right. However, if you go to the if you sell the product and go to the feedback section and it turns out that the people don't like the taste, or the chocolate bars always come out broken, then you're doing something wrong in either of the input or the process sections. You could be importing the wrong kind of cocoa, or you could be using the machine somewhat wrong. That kind of stuff you're going to have to find out when it comes to the negatives. Of course, you're going to always want to keep making changes to the business, even though you're getting positive feedbacks, because constant change, meaning constant improvements to the business, are always good, and the customers will love that. Yes, that was everything for the four main components of a system that is a business. And we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.